Greetings, fellow humans. I'm MartianBuu, and today we have all of the priest cards revealed for the upcoming Showdown in the Badlands expansion. And I thought, considering the way they've been doing reveals recently, I was going to switch up how I do reviews and actually review the classes as they come out. So what I'm going to do is go over all of the priest cards, and then at the end, I'm going to show you a wild deck that I came up with based on some of them. Keep in mind that these cards aren't out yet, so you may have trouble with the code before the expansion launches, but it will be there in the description nonetheless. Alright, so the first four here, we have Tram Heist, which is a 4-mana spell. Get a copy of each card your opponent played last turn. This is an interesting card, maybe for standard, but really, I think it's so situational and so dependent on what your opponent's doing that it feels like something that would go in the ETC, if anything. I imagine this isn't going to see a lot of play, but I could see a meta where miracle decks are pretty prominent again, and it maybe being a niche choice for that. Then we have a new bottle mechanic, which I think is actually really cool. The next three cards, all of them have any excess go in a 1-cost bottle. So if any part of its effect is unnecessary, you get that extra bit of effect to play later for 1 mana. Really cool concept. I'm excited to play all of these. The first one here we have is Holy Springwater. So for 2 mana, you restore 8 health to a damaged character, save any excess in a 1-cost bottle, and it's a holy spell. When I see a card like this, I automatically go to Xyrella from the Barrens, the minion. So spoilers, I definitely incorporated that into the deck I'm going to showcase. So here you could, for 2 mana, heal 8 health to your hero, and then clear for up to 8. It does say damaged character, so it doesn't want to make it too easy for you to overheal. It wants you to heal at least a little. But yeah, this will be pretty interesting, I think, as a control tool and as a heal synergy tool. I do think that this is probably the most playable of the 3 here, but I could be wrong. And then we have Invasive Shade Leaf. For 4 mana, deal 8 damage to an enemy minion, save any excess in a 1-cost bottle, and it's a shadow spell. So this is all right. It's like 4 mana for destroy a minion is bad, right? Nobody would play that. But it has the upside of if you didn't need the full 8, you get an extra spell for later. I feel like at 3 mana, I would start thinking about this card, but at 4, it's just too expensive. Then Swarm of Lightbugs. Summon 10 1/1 Lightbugs with lifesteal, save any excess in a 1-cost bottle. So you're always getting the bottle with this because you only have 7 slots out. Token Swarm isn't really a priest thing. This definitely seems out of flavor. I really like the concept of the card. I don't know what priest is going to do with going wide with 1/1s. Maybe them having lifesteal is something I'm overlooking, but I definitely feel like if this sees any play, it'll be in standard. 5 mana for this type of effect in priest is a bit too much to ask for a while, but I love the concept of the card. I think it's really cool. Then we have Posse Possession. 4 mana shadow spell. Summon a 4/4 copy of a random minion in your opponent's hand. This, I think, is big stinky doo-doo, but it's funny. Benevolent Banker. 3 mana 2/4. Battlecry. Discover a spell from your deck. Quick draw. Enemy deck instead. When I first read this, I was like, it's an alright discover effect. It's nice for tutor. Maybe it's a little low impact, but maybe it's good enough. But the thing is, it's not discover a copy, right? It's discover. So if you hit the quick draw, you're actually stealing the thing from your opponent. And I don't like those type of effects. I'm kind of like, I'm in the camp that like removing something from the opponents permanently is a little lame. So I'm not like too excited about that, but the thing is, this is a quick draw card, so it's only going to be active the turn you draw it. You have to play this the turn you draw it if you want to steal. And it's hitting spells, which I think is less devastating than hitting minions. Like just getting to go and steal your opponent's Odin, for example, I think would be a big sad, but usually spells aren't complete necessary build-arounds that you can't afford to lose one of them. So it's an interesting card. I don't know how I feel about quick draw as a mechanic, but this could be good enough for like a Shadow Reno Priest or something. Then we have Injured Hauler. 3 mana 3/7 Battlecry, deal 4 damage to this minion. Overheal, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. So this is kind of interesting. It's like a almost strictly better Injured Blade Master. It has 1 less attack, but its effect is pretty neat, right? So if you have a lot of board healing effects and you get this guy out, you can wipe your opponent off the map over and over and over again. I'm slightly interested now in like an Injured Blade Master, Injured Hauler, Heal Priest to see if we can do anything there, but I definitely need more time to brew that one. As far as like just going in any deck, I feel like No, you have to like really build around this for it to be good. 4 damage is a lot to get to then have to overheal multiple times. Then we have Thirsty Drifter, which is 6 mana, 4/6 taunt, and it costs 1 less for each 1-cost card you've played this game. So we know from the Queen Carnassa quest and from the Paladin quest that having to play a lot of 1-costs specifically does not make for a good card. However, this doesn't like start in your opening hand and take up one of your early slots, and it does require less 1-cost cards than those do. You also don't need to get the full value out of this before it's good, right? If you can get this down to like 2 or 1, you're pretty happy about it. You can just toss this in like an aggro shell. You run the 1-cost pirates that you would already, you know, Void Touch Attendant, Shadow Bomber, and you're probably going to play at least like 3 of those before you would be put in a position to where you'd have to play this or play nothing. And so it could just be if you slightly build for it in a Shadow Priest deck that it's good enough. And Raised Dead, of course, helps with that. There's a legendary that synergizes with this. I don't know how good that'll be, but we'll talk about that right now. So first legendary we have is Pip the Potent. It is a 4 mana 3/5 Battlecry. Copy each 1-cost card in your hand. For Wild, this might be a bit too expensive, especially considering by the time you play this, you will have played a bunch of your 1-cost cards anyway. So you're not going to have a lot left over to copy with Pip. I don't know that this will be an aggro card just because of that. It is an interesting like OTK card possibly because Shadow Attendant costs 1. So you could like try to get a bunch of attendants and then make a nutty Astalor or something like that. I don't know. That's probably a bit too awkward. What we really want to look at with this is like automatons or the boar from Stormwind. So if you have a couple boars in your hand, you play this, you get a couple copies of each of the boars, and then the boar sword is easier to assemble. So this will be fun with that. I think the boar deck is always slightly close to being something in Wild, and maybe this helps enough with that to play. And then finally we have Elise, Badlands Savior. So it's an 8 mana 5/5 Battlecry. If your deck has no duplicates, summon 4/4 copies of 4 random minions in your deck. The problem with this in Wild is Reno decks tend to be very Battlecry focused. So this ends up being like a ton of stats for 8 mana, but just a stat bomb on turn 8 in Wild. How good is that? I don't think it's that great. So I don't expect this to be a big meta player in Wild. I think it's gonna end up being in the, you know, Cruel Solia tier of doesn't really get played much. Really, it's probably closer to like Relicologist in Mage, in that like there was a time where this would have been really spectacular, but maybe it just, the way that the meta is, it's not up to the task anymore. I say that, but it's the deck I built, so I'll get more into that when I talk about the deck. But yeah, I think Priest has a lot of interesting build arounds with this set of cards. I don't know that any of them are really popping out to me as being extremely strong in Wild, but if you were looking for stuff to do, there's a lot of packages to work with here. There's a Highlander package, there's a Boar package, there's an Automaton package, stuff to do with Aggro Priest, stuff to do with Xyrella minions. So there's a lot of interesting stuff to work with here. I don't know that any of it is like really popping out to me as super strong, but definitely a fun little batch of Priest cards. So for the deck, what I wanted to do with Elise was make something where the stats are good, and then hitting like 1 or 2 of the good minions makes the effect worth it. So you get the immediate impact of the 1 or 2 minions that end up being good when you play Elise, and accompany that with the giant stat bomb of the 21/21 health spread out over the bodies. What I wanted to avoid was making it a worse Xerix Cloning Gallery high roll deck. So I didn't want to build like Malagos Velen OTK or like a Thaddeus miracle deck of some kind. Anything like that is something we could already do with Xerix Cloning Gallery, and I don't think making a high roll deck like that more high rolly by making it Highlander is going to do it any favors. So I wanted to make at least a standalone stat bomb like you would want for a Highlander deck without overbuilding into it. So I didn't put in things like Neptulon either that are really good off of Elise, but they're terrible if you ever draw them. So I wanted to keep it to things that I wouldn't be too miserable if they ended up in my hand. So with that, we have obviously Aman'Thul and Yogg-Saron Unleashed, the Titans. Especially Aman'Thul is good to play from hand, and Yogg-Saron is going to be nerfed. It's showing 15 mana here, but it's going to be 9 mana. It won't discount, and whenever it uses an ability, it'll cast 2 random spells. So still getting to do the hysteria effect or the mind control effect off of Elise is going to be really strong. If you get this in your hand, it's still going to be playable. Ziliax is in here just to be an additional hit. Like, I really scraped the bottom of the barrel. I didn't love any of the Death Rattle minions. I do think that there's a really cool Death Rattle possibility with this new Elise, because you have the Light Shallower Elemental, you have the one that draws a Shadow spell and a Holy spell, you have the one that deals 3 damage, so you could build yourself like a Death Rattle, Big Priest, Reno Priest if you wanted to go that route. I almost did that, but I thought this would be more fun. So anyways, bottom of the barrel as far as like minions that were going to be cool off of Elise, but we're really trying to hit just 1. 2 is nice, but if we hit at least 1 immediate board impact, I think it makes Elise an interesting play. So we have Yogg-Saron, we have Aman'Thul. Those are our like primo hits. Those are what we want to hit more than anything else. Behemoth is all right, Ziliax is all right, but other than that, there really isn't a lot that I love putting in the deck. Xeric's Cloning Gallery is in here. I had to be convinced. I was asking some peers for advice, and I had to be convinced that that was an okay inclusion, because I was really trying to avoid making this like a worse Xeric's Cloning Gallery high roll deck. But being as we're trying to like zoop out a bunch of Titans and get their effects, I think it's okay. And we've built it to be able to cast it early. So we do have the Love Everlasting, we have Palm Reading, and we have Illuminate, which are all fine when they hit other things. Considering Everlasting is in here, we could put in Svalna, but I was already kind of pushing the envelope as far as my ratio of good minions. Something that's nice about keeping the minion package tight is Creation Protocol. Discovering a minion from your deck is going to be much more likely to hit a good minion that you want it to hit. So other than that, as far as getting new cards into this deck and not having it just be only an Elise, I put in Holy Springwater. It has that synergy with Xyrella that I was excited about, so we have Xyrella in here too. I tried to keep the healing cards to the ones that were good enough to play on their own, not the ones that are only good when you play them with Xyrella, like the 0 mana one or the Gift of the Naru. So we have Twilight Torrent that can be removal if you need it to be. Penance, we have Renew, which gets you a card. Convert is in here just because of the Titans. So if your opponent plays a Titan, you get a copy of that Titan and it costs 1. It's really good. How good do I expect this deck to be? I think it's going to be good enough to have some fun with. I don't know that it's going to like shake the meta or anything like that, but this is my first attempt at making Elise Badlands Savior into something in Wild. And that wraps up the Showdown in the Badlands Priest review. Let me know in the comments what you're excited about, if I missed any cool synergies that might be in here with some of the cards, or what kind of deck you'd like to build. Remember to like and subscribe to support the channel, and thank you so much for watching.